Hey guys, Coach Dan here. Back again. Nah, just being a silly bugger. So, start of the week, session 1 of the week coming up. Looking forward to it. So, I was banging on last week crying about how little I was enjoying training and stuff like that. And again, the idea was just to be able to get through it, to stay in good routines and stuff like that. And usually we come out the back end of that, and I feel much better this week. I feel ready to go. Some of the things that I'm doing to kind of help with my general fatigue overall, because I don't think it's an isolated incident. I think I'm maybe doing too much volume and therefore getting fatigued quickly with my current lifestyle. So within my life at the moment, I'm back at uni, I've got another job, family, all these kinds of things. And maybe in times gone by, the amount of volume that I've been doing would have been fine. But where I am currently, it hasn't been very recoverable. You know, performance has been okay, but not outstanding. So maybe that's why I thought, I'll just stick with it. More volume is better, but maybe more volume is not better. So basically all I've done is simply chop off 20% of the volume I added 4 months ago at the start of this muscle gain phase. So I've taken that away, and then I'm going to check in with the next couple of months. Now, if my performance still goes up and I still get better and all these kinds of things, then there is a non-issue with taking that volume away. If I backslide, which I don't expect to happen, that's also not ideal. So it's just playing that experiment game. Can I reduce some of my fatigue to be able to continue to train hard and all that kind of stuff? So we're experimenting with that today, which involves, chopping 20% volume off, so 20% less training time, I suppose. A couple less exercises, so I can be very intent on the exercise that I do. Which means, today and all this week, I want to go into each workout, each rep with a lot of intent, making it the best rep it can possibly be, and just absolutely give it my all. So, I'm looking forward to this week. I feel much better, feel much happier, which is always a good sign. And after grinding it out last week, we can now get back to enjoying things. So let's get out there. Let's start our chest or push workout. See you at the first exercise. Chest day, exercise number 1. We're going with a plate-loaded chest press. This is a good one for a couple of reasons. Number 1, it's got good resistance. So if you think about a lever like this, the lever is hardest when it's coming directly out. So weight's been pushed down, it's furthest away from its joint or its hinge. As it goes up, it gets easier, which probably has a lot of merit for muscle growth. So making it hard in that bottom position and easier as it gets towards the top. It also angles slightly up, which for me is a bit of a focus at the moment. Now, it's got 2 handle options. So that's another good thing about it. I've been taking this version, but this one completely fine. Something that I do that is not customary is I use a yoga block. So it just limits a little bit of range of motion on this one. So to get me a little bit further range, get a bigger stretch through the chest, I use a yoga block. I set that between the shoulder blades in this kind of position here, and then we're pressing up like such. Feel it come down and stretch. Oh yeah. So this one feels quite good. I like the resistance. This is usually my second exercise of the day, but the first exercise is occupied, or my first machine is occupied, so tough titties. And that used to fuck me off actually when I couldn't get on the first exercise first, but for muscle growth, as long as we get on each and we try hard on each, we're good to go. All right, let's build up to a weight and let's start smashing out big intensity today, big intent. incline Smith machine bench press. So I go on the low incline. So I think the Smith machine has potential advantage over the standard bench press in the stability that it has. So you think about a standard bench press, it might move, it wobbles, you have to keep it where it is. Now, if your goal is to bench press a heavy weight, you got to bench press. But if your goal is to grow muscle, potentially not having to worry about that stability and be able to like have the machine create it for itself has some advantages. But the challenge then with this one becomes positioning yourself such that you train what you want to train. So for me, I'm trying to work this into the upper pec or the clavicular pec that kind of leans in towards the collarbone or clavicle. So I incline the bench just a touch, but then you also have to roll the bench such that the fibers that you're trying to train are lined up with the resistance. So shove the bench in such that it's kind of lining up with the part of the chest you want to train. And then hand position, again, you're making sure that it's comfortable and feels strong, but also your arm path goes in the direction that you want. So for me, low incline, that's number one. Number two, I've already lined it up such that when this comes down, it's going to tap me on the top of the chest or higher up on the chest than usual. Then I take a finger, there's a smooth area here, I take a finger, index finger, place it on that, and that seems to work well for my position. Now, normally this will be exercise number one, but it had to be exercise number two today because of availability. So there's some potential that the strength might be down on this. But again, we're not after strength here, we're after muscle growth. So as long as I make it hard, they should be fine. That worked really well, the flat bench press, the flat chest press. So now we're going to here, try hard, bada bing, bada boom, grow them muscles. We are growing them muscles. Let's go. Next up we have the seated machine cable fly. Now I'm doing this on a slight upward angle. Now there is some merit to doing it on here versus the standard machine fly that just comes as your pec deck machine fly, because you can customize the height, but also the resistance here changes throughout the movement. So if you angle it such that it's really hard at the back, it gets kind of easier as you come through the movement, whereas potentially the machine fly is the opposite of that, making it harder as you come through. So this might have some merit for those two reasons in my mind. The customizability, you can make it focus on what you want, and also you can make it hard where you want hard, but there are some downsides. So getting into positions is a bit awkward, especially because we have these, what do you call this, kind of adjustable bench, not one of the utility benches, I think they call them. So with that in mind, I use a moderate weight and I go 10 to 15 reps versus using a heavy weight and going lower, because then I'd have to wrestle it into position. So I'll take both handles, kind of scoop in front of the seat, get my seating, and then fly like that. Oh yeah, that's gonna feel good today. So, where I set the hand is slightly lower, so we kind of angle up like such that we are working more towards the upper pec. You get a little bit of the sternal pec, or the one through the center as well, but I'm kind of angling it up because that's kind of something I want to work more on. So you could do this like this and it would still have merit from the resistance point of view, but that's kind of my focus at the moment. All right, let's finish off the chest work. That felt good, even just those couple of practice and warm-ups. So let's go. That's something I did this week versus last week. Last week I had the pad slightly back. And what that does is that you think about, if I go back like that, it almost turns it into an incline again. Now I've just said I want it, a decline fly, so kind of be lower peckish. So I saw that last week in some of the video footage where I was leaning back and it kind of comes into that lower pec kind of area. So I've brought the thing all the way up and now I'm going to angle up like that, not lean back. So just a couple of fuck around things for me. Let's go. All right, chest is pumped up. Love that shit. Feels really good, feels effective. All three of those exercises really nice. 2 sets each. So reduction on what I've been doing the last few months. See if progress is still good or if it goes down or up even. That'd be pretty sweet. But now we move on to shoulders. A couple of shoulders, isolate the triceps to finish as well. So I'm gonna do a behind the back cable lateral raise variation. Now, I find this one really nice. It feels really effective, maybe one of my favorites as far as how it feels goes, but it does take a little bit of setup. So with the cable machine or functional trainer here, I'll set the cables up at about hand height if I'm standing here normally. We will then face in and grab the handle in front of us. Now I've got my straps on, but that's not absolutely necessary. Then I'll step over, and that's probably where a little bit of the fuckery lies. You've got to step over, so I've got them in position like such, and now we raise. So one of the other things that you have to be mindful of is the cable machine, or sorry, the cables, individual cables, slamming into each other, so they kind of tink, tink. So you've got to kind of find which arm is going close to the butt and which is going further away from the butt. Choose that. The angle at which I like to do it is kind of like, maybe you call that about 45. So in that kind of path there, this sort of direction there, you think about, well, I think about, okay, anterior delt is bringing my arm towards my face because it's a deltoid tuberosity into the lateral part of the clavicle. So it's pulling your arm in this way. This one here now, same, the deltoid tuberosity on the same arm, that's one of the points that it starts, and then it goes into the side of the acromion. So probably anything through this kind of range is good. I think the ones directly out to the side kind of jam into your own shoulder a bit. So I like it at least in pretty much all variations, slightly in front of the arm. I think that's probably best personally, but you know, again, if you like it out to the side and it feels hectic for you, go for it. But yeah, I'm somewhere in that 45 and that feels most effective for me. All right, been a while since I've done it on this particular cable machine, so I've got to figure out my weight and then we'll smash out our first set. Next up, plate loaded shoulder press. So this is another good machine as far as resistance goes, because the lever is essentially, well, this handle, or should I say the weight or the arm, is pretty close to directly out at the beginning of the movement, making it hard. As it starts to lever up and essentially the weight and the handle gets closer above the hinge or the joint, it gets easier. So that's good about this. It has 2 different handles. So if you have this option, again, you think we just came from a lateral raise. Now people might go, oh, like this is going to be working your side delt as well. Yeah, a little bit. But you think about the lateral raise, my hand is facing like that, so I'm slightly internally rotated, lining the resistance up with the lateral delt. With any kind of shoulder press, you externally rotate, and then line it up such that the anterior delt's going to be the big worker. So yes, I've already done bench press, flies, blah, blah, blah. Anterior delt has got a decent amount of work during those, but I'm just capping it off with 2 sets here as well, just because what's wrong with your shoulders being bigger if you can afford the volume, or you can recover from the volume. I suppose that's an important thing. So I take a neutral grip here, feet planted on the ground. You'll also see that as well as the external rotation of the arm, lining it up with the anterior fibers to work the anterior delt. Also the angle goes a little bit different. So the lateral raise out to the side, and whatever that 45-degree angle is, I think they call it a scapular plane. This one now, it's coming straight for my head. So I'll raise the seat up to the top. That'll allow a nice range of motion and stretch through the anterior delt. And then essentially I'm thinking about driving my arm towards my head. So instead of just pushing this weight up, you're pulling your arm across to use that anterior part of the deltoid. So it's not just a shoulder press, it's kind of almost pulling, using the anterior, pulling this across. All right, I've talked enough shit about that. I think I had a dream about this last night over which using this grip or this grip, and I couldn't quite figure it out. But I think this one's still good for me. My shoulders can feel uncomfortable sometimes out in this position, or my right shoulder particularly. So I'll go neutral grip. Let's go. Last exercise, nice one. Some tricep isolation work. So with all our pressing stuff, the triceps get some work, but I still like to isolate them as well. So I'll do a few sets here of this easy bar skull crusher, and I'm also considering whether I should split this volume, because I've been doing 5 sets here and another exercise, and that's some of the volume that I've reduced. Now I'm kind of thinking, do I just continue with my 5 sets here or split that volume over a couple of exercises? So I haven't quite decided yet. So I think I am going to just leave it at this, and maybe I'll do some heavier sets and some lighter sets, and that can be the variation there. So with the easy bar skull crusher, so easy bar being the bar with the kink in it, which you'll see in a second here. I've always favored this one. I like the narrow bend, so the narrow bend in it. You could do this with dumbbells, you could do this with a straight bar, but this is a variation that I go with, I've always liked. So we're here onto the lat, laying down with it. So we're flexing the elbow. I like to gently tap it behind my head on the bench. And again, this is a variation I have felt best with me. There are variations where we go to the head, and I've even seen people go to the chin, and whatever feels good for you, but this one above the head has always felt good with me. I think when it's gotten heavy before, going to the chin, and that has affected my elbows, and I didn't really like it. So I'd always just go back to this variation, but nothing wrong with doing the other ones. 10 to 15-ish reps, maybe a couple 10 to 15s, maybe a couple lighter ones, 5 total sets, and that caps off the workout and the triceps. Let's go. right, guys, that's a cap. That's a cap on the workout. Cap that workout. That caps off the workout. Really good. So happy with that. So think about what I've done is I've simply chopped off a whole bunch of work that I was doing for the sake of hopefully reducing some fatigue. So in the last 4 months, I've added 20% to a lot of my upper body muscle groups because I wanted that to be a focus. But potentially I can't recover from that 20% with everything else that I'm doing. So ultimately I've gone from 138 total sets to about 108 sets by taking off that 20%. And in a lot of instances it just looks like reducing a set. So for instance today we started with the chest press, but we were meant to start with the Smith machine press. I have been doing 3 sets of that. That's now down to 2. At the end of the workout I had an extra shoulder exercise, lateral delt exercise, and an extra tricep exercise. And I've just chopped them off and done that throughout the week just to kind of bring it back down. Now, in the instance that my progress gets worse or goes backwards, then maybe I can consider, reintroducing it a bit more gradually, or for a couple of muscle groups and then a couple others. So that I'll wait for that to come up to make a decision there. But I think this is ultimately best for the long term. And today's workout, I would normally have 2 more exercises, 2 sets each to go. I'm done. So that's pretty sweet. Intensity was good today, and now we'll just track progress over the next couple of months and hopefully she goes up. Anyway, that's that. See you tomorrow. We're going to go lower body tomorrow, so get ready for some of that action. As always, if you like the content, guys, please subscribe. Hit the button up here and give it a little subscribe, share, like, whatever that stuff is. And then if you want to see some of the other muscle groups trained, click up here and it'll show you some of that in that playlist. And as always, it's about progress over perfection. Coach Dan, signing off.